Especially the last council that happened.
No, he'll be here next month.
Oh, that's right. I knew there was something.
He's out of town.
Because we're talking about changing the charter, and I mean we're up against a time limit.
Okay.
Call the meeting back to order.
Anyway, it's something we got to see.
We do have a quorum. We'll have a better quorum if the rest of our members will join us at the table.
They crushed us last year, and so they're coming back.
We will start with introductions. And the question is whether we skip Andy Pico or Mark Snyder.
Mark's going to win the race.
Okay. I am Dennis Heisey, El Paso County Commissioner, and to my left.
Mark Snyder, Mayor, Manitou Springs, First Vice Chair.
Rob McDonald, PPACG.
Commissioner Glenn.
Commissioner Glenn.
I was about to try to help. I was too late to help. I apologize. Colonel Bill LaCory, Commander of Schriever Air Force Base.
Colonel Brad McDonald, the Vice Commander of the 10th Air Base Wing at the Air Force Academy.
Colonel Rich Birchfield, representing Colonel Shaw from Peterson Air Force Base. I may have started that. I apologize.
I feel like I should say I'm captain. Getting all public transportation representative.
Gabe Ortega, Mayor, City Fountain.
Neil Levy, Mayor, Woodland Park.
Sharon Thompson, Fountain City Council. Karen Rowe, CDOT Region 2.
Tyler Stevens, Mayor Pro Tem, Green Mountain Falls.
Norm Steen, Teller County.
Andy Pico, Colorado Springs City Council. I did hear a rumor coming up here that Green Mountain Falls was going to be renamed Green Mountain Glaciers.
Back to Jacqueline.
Jacqueline Hewitt, PPACG. Rachel Beck, PPACG.
Rich Mezzi, PPSG Environmental Program.
Beverly Majewski, Finance Manager.
Craig Casper, Transportation Director.
Yes, Bob.
Bob Baker, CAC. Good morning, Mark Andrews, Commissioner.
Kathleen Krager, City Traffic Engineer.
Pete Lee, State House, District 18, representative.
Congratulations.
Lisa Streisfeld, CDOT Region 2, Planning and Environmental.
Bill Gamble, Regional Advisory Council.
Gail Nels, Ambico.
Metro Transit.
Craig Lewis, City Council, Metropolitan Transit.
Jennifer Urban, El Paso County. Catherine Chair. Victoria Chavez, El Paso County.
James McMurray, Marcel Day.
Porter, Air Force Academy, Public Affairs. Dawn Ryder.
Doug Eberhardt, Wilson Company.
Ilana Roberts, PPACG.
Andrew Trissolero, PPACG.
Christina Urban, Yellow.
Ken Brader, PPACG.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all. Sorry for the late start, but that's what we needed. Item number 2, agenda approval. Any changes?
Nope.
Motion to approve?
We do have some item 7E in the pack. Is that agenda change? How can I this is 7 Echo?
What are we?
It's, did we just mark out?
What does 70 say?
What do you have for 70?
Proposal of narrative, it's just my packet. It's not germane.
Okay. Did we have a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 3 is public comment. We will begin with this wonderful piece of crystal sitting here between the second vice chair and I. Rob, would you like to explain what that is?
I'd love to. Our national association, the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, you know it as our transportation planning program, but we're really the MPO, or Metropolitan Planning Organization. We got nominated and won Best MPO in the country for the large MPOs is the translation, beating out all our good friends of New York and L.A. and Dallas and Boston and all those other ones over 200,000 people. So we're a very small TMA, Transportation Management Association, MPO. We have plenty of acronyms for it. But at their conference almost 3 weeks ago now, they awarded PPACG with Best in the Country for the work we did, and you all approved the 2035 long-range plan. Doesn't get us out of doing the 2040 plan, by the way. You're looking at the 2040 plan in the next couple of months to finalize. But they really recognized what our staff, our consultants, and even the board for what we approved, how we approved it, getting all the folks engaged in that, using state-of-the-practice, free software, not-so-free software, really all the tools that are state-of-the-art, state-of-the-practice. So they recognized us through that plan amongst all our peers in the country. So really proud of our gang to get this award, and we didn't even know about it until about a week, 10 days before. So it was my privilege to accept it on behalf of the board a couple weeks ago, and I brought back the hardware, which is here for everyone to look at.
Well, thank you very much. Realize that you are the captain of the ship here, but it sounds like the way you described that you managed to get everybody rowing in the same direction to make this happen.
We stayed away from the waterfall.
So express our appreciation to all of your staff. I realize we have a few of them here, but you have a lot
Yes.
more upstairs that we don't see. So if you could let them know that we.
I will. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm wondering if this is worthy of some type of a press release. Maybe a photo of our chair and our director and holding the award. Oh, it's already gone out, huh?
You know,
No,
we
drafted.
Drafted. Okay.
drafted. Has Rachel been introduced?
I was going to do that in my report, but we can
Okay.
do that at any time.
We'll hold it.
Okay.
Now we have the anticipation.
Yes.
Rachel handed it to me.
Oh, all right.
Any other comments on our award here? It's going to be hard to hang on the wall, but we'll figure something out. Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes, well done. Well done. Public comments. Anyone in the audience have an item they'd like to bring to this board that is not on today's agenda? Thank you. Lost in thought for a moment there. Item 4 is our consent items. Any of those anyone needs to pull off? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, our reports. Rob, we're back to you.
It didn't take long. I'll start with Rachel Beck, who announced herself with a new title. She is our Policy Communication Manager at PPACG. She's been here now 2 weeks or so, maybe a week and a day. Glad to get Rachel. Many of you recognize her from her great work with the stormwater proposal that's been going on for a couple of years now at least. And we're grateful she said she'd join us in replacing Jason, who left to go off to Michigan. But she is here now, and she's already got one press release on the table. It's not out yet, though. I told her she has to get approval. But welcome.
Very good. That's your entire report?
That's the first item? I wish.
Oh,
Okay. A small pause. Most of the things are on the agenda. We'll get to that. The other one is interesting. The town of Alma, who's not here today, we helped them do their comprehensive plan back in 99, 2000. They would like us to do it again. And so we're going to propose to them, using some of our staff, who are now national award winners, to do a comprehensive plan for them, using some of their money, some of Department of Local Affairs money. We can't use our transportation planning money, but I think the staff will be up to that challenge. The rest of the items are on the agenda, so I won't cover them.
Thank you. Moving on to our Transportation Advisory Committee. Jennifer Irvine.
Hope everybody's warming up this morning. Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County, also the Transportation Advisory TAC Chair. Just a brief summary of our meeting for you. An item that's on your agenda today for approval as well is the 2013 to 2018 TIP Amendment Number 23, which our committee passed unanimously and recommended to you unanimously approval of that. We also had an action item for the 2040 funding levels, which is also on your agenda today, and also a unanimous recommendation to the Board of Directors for approval. We also discussed as an informational item the project portfolios, and then also had a follow-up workshop on November 5th. So I'll let Craig discuss that with you, and if you have any questions of us, I'll be available as well. We also got a brief update from CDOT on the Strategic Corridor 228 projects and the congestion management projects process with HDR, the consultant for PPACG. And then finally, another item which you have on your agenda today is an information item, the MPO boundary change, and that will come back to both us next month for, I think, final recommendation. But do hear from a couple of the member government TAC members that there are a couple small changes that they're probably going to recommend at the next TAC meeting. So, and then our next meeting is November 20th, and we'll also have a follow-up workshop on December 5th to further discuss the portfolio. So,
Questions for Jennifer? Thank you. Yes, Mark.
Not necessarily for Jennifer, but you mentioned the 228 projects. I didn't see anywhere else on the agenda, but my understanding was that, is that still in play, that money?
Rob, did you want to address that?
I see CDOT.
Let's.
So it's really for Karen, but I
Yeah,
thought I'd grab her microphone.
let's go to our
so-
Region 2 Director. Roll.
So yes, it's still in play. We're putting a list together in case we get the Senate Bill 228 money.
Okay.
Again, that's estimated. I mean, it could be as much as $20 million per year, but they're. Sorry, thank you. 200 million. Sorry, 200 million each year for up to 5 years for up to $1 billion. Right now, the financial forecasts say that we'd have the extra money in order to get the funds to fulfill Senate Bill 228, but Tabor would restrict it. But we're trying to still put a list together. I think they're trying to put a list of $2 billion worth of transportation projects that could be done if we did get the money. And that will go to the Transportation Commission in November. So they have shortlisted up to 2 billion projects. And again, then we'll see what happens in terms of ways that they would move forward with that list, you know, to try to get those funds for those projects. And right now, there are 2 from this area on that list. And one is the research interchange on Powers, and one is 8th Street and State Highway 24. So, from this area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Community Advisory Committee, Bob Baker.
Morning, you all. Jacqueline does such a great job in preparing your report that I almost could step up here and say ditto. It's that kind of thing, but I will just go very shortly through the list. We did receive our nominating committee subcommittee report, and those who have volunteered to fill positions were listed. We've gone back out and asked others to apply for those positions if they so wish, but we will finalize that process in December. We received a status report on the I-25 Cimarron interchange with the city and state to bridge the $20 million shortfall. The project, we received the information that it was expected to commence in the spring, as you are receiving today. CAC reviewed and recommends approval to the board of TIP Amendment Number 23 unanimously. The CAC reviewed and recommends the 2040 funding levels presented by staff. Numerous questions arose during the presentation and were appropriately answered by staff. Then we received an enlightened presentation from Craig Casper. It was delivered to mostly unenlightened CAC members regarding the several mathematical models. You will be hearing that, I think, today, too. I guess it comes down to a lack of understanding of those mathematical models, but we are very well versed on the weighting criteria for the projects as previously agreed upon. The congestion management process was presented by Craig, and a previously noted correction regarding separated grades at 8th Street and 21st Street were inserted. Our next CAC meeting is November the 19th. That's early for us to better mesh with both the TAC and the PPACG board review process. Any questions?
Anything for Bob? Thank you, sir.
I hope you will be more enlightened than the CAC was.
5D is our Regional Advisory Council, Bill Gamble. So did you meet at any exotic locations, or?
Not this past time. The last exotic location was the country store in Ellicott. You all need to go visit the country store in Ellicott. It's fantastic. They got great coffee. Good morning. Our report is in your package. Just call your attention to a couple of things. State Unit on Aging is advising that future contracts between the AAAs and the State Unit on Aging may have some performance measures that we would have to meet. We don't know what they're going to look like. They've given some suggestions, and it's still under study, but future contracts between the State Unit on Aging and the AAAs may have some performance contract measures that we would have to meet. That's under discussion and review, and as soon as we have something definite, we can address what we need to do. Depending on what it is, it might change the character of our committee, our council. We may have more people that have business backgrounds that if those performance measures demand that we have those kind of folks on our council. We talked last month about the innovation and coordination grants. Those that were approved, we briefed you on, and we were able to address the needs for those that were approved. We had to adjust to put them in the right categories. They were approved, but in handling the money, they had to be in the right categories for expenditure. The State Unit on Aging advisors for that. So we were able to satisfy those requirements by putting those costs in the right categories. And with the carryover funding, we'll be addressing how to spend the additional monies that we have left over to include the Adult Care Center in Teller County. On December 2nd, the Technical Review Committee will meet. As Rob briefed you last month, he and Guy went and had a discussion about that. And so the additional information will be reviewed again on December 2nd, and with the carryover funding that's available, that could be part of that solution. So that will happen, and we'll be able to support to whatever extent it's justified with that carryover funding. We have available, there was $184,000 left, and 86,000 of that had already been committed. So we'll be using those additional funds to support that. There's a program that we don't have much information on, but it's a program that would help seniors with their mental health and other needs. Right now it's in Jefferson County, and we'll get some information on that. It may be something useful for us to use for our seniors who do have mental health issues, to provide services, to identify who they are and to provide services for them as required. Lastly, next month will be my last time presenting to you. I have served my sentence at the 6 years on the Regional Advisory Commission and 2 years as the chair, and I'm term limited. So anyway, hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Any questions for my reports in your package?
Questions for Bill? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Happy Thanksgiving.
5E, Mobility Coordinating Committee. Welcome, Gail Nels.
Good morning, and thank you. I'd also like to ditto Bob's comments. Jackie, you do a great job on summarizing our meetings, but just to call out a few things for your attention. I think our presentation was the most noteworthy last month's meeting. Angel Bond had invited down someone who is implementing the Medicaid brokerage system up in the Northwest Council of Governments. And it's I think a 7 or 8 county Medicaid brokerage system. It was 4 years in putting it together. And this is, and so Angel invited her here to talk to us about what we might be doing here in El Paso County, because with the expansion of the American Affordable Care Act, there is a greater need and more demand for services under this program. And El Paso County is working on this, and we are working with them as well. But we wanted to see what they're doing in other parts of the state. And she just basically said it was a long and difficult process. Basically, out of the counties in their Council of Governments, 2 initially signed on. Now that it's up and running within a month, others want to join, and it's just like someone else is going first. So we're looking at what that might look like here in El Paso County. Another important item that we discussed was this, I guess, a fledgling, the Joint Dispatch and Call. We have that software installed on the 4 nonprofit agencies and also Fountain Valley working on that. And so I think there's going to be, well, we were awarded some money, Angel was, to implement this Joint Scheduling and Call Center. I think this person will be hired shortly, if not already done, and it's 30 hours a week. And so we're looking at trying to increase efficiencies within the community of, I guess, human service providers. Outside of that, we're looking forward to a potluck in December and we're celebrating probably most particularly the exceptional drivers that do the service for our community. I mean, we have some that have been doing this for 25 years, others 10 years, and so we'd like to celebrate them. Any other questions or any for us?
Mayor Snyder.
Hey, thank you. So there was a discussion about the future location of the call center. Was there any direction emerging from that discussion?
I didn't hear of anyone else stepping up to say, yes, oh, me, put it here. So I think it might be a default of having it here at the Council of Government, and obviously with their excellent award, we feel comfortable with that. So, no, but I think it needs to be housed somewhere, and this is a neutral place, and I think we can all trust that it would be well stewardship of the funds. Anything else, Mayor Snyder?
No, thank you. That was the answer I was
Thank
hoping for.
5F, Rich Muzzy with the Arkansas Fountain Coalition for Urban River Evaluation. This is the newly trimmed Rich Muzzy.
Thank you. After you met on November 4th, this is right before the day the packet goes out, so there was not a report included in your packet. Some items to highlight are the Colorado Discharge Permit System renewals, most of the wastewater treatment plant and dischargers, Colorado Springs Utilities, Fountain Sanitation District, Lower Fountain Metropolitan Sewage Disposal District, Security Widefield. They're all getting notices to get their permits renewed. So we discussed some common issues and concerns regarding some of the language in those permit renewals, and we'll be drafting a letter to go ahead and send to the state. Also talked about the dues for 2015. The AFCAR members approved the dues. This dues will go towards Coordinator Brown and Caldwell, also for the Colorado Monitoring Framework and Colorado Discharge Sharing Network, which enters the data into the network for Regulation 85 compliance. Talked about some specific projects for funding, such as temperature monitoring, a selenium study, and resegmentation analysis. Had a presentation from the USGS to talk about the differences between the USGS methodology and the CDPHE methodology on macro invertebrates. and how it could affect the data and the potential standards. So we discussed a little bit about what to do with that data. And then we ended on sampling. We reviewed the sampling locations, talked a little bit about joining, trying to get a IGA in place with a USGS with regards to a kind of a joint expanded sampling network, and also talked about how we could trim the sampling that's currently being done for radionuclides and metals and other parameters that are currently being sampled that potentially we don't need to go ahead and sample. And some also common locations where we can go ahead and partner up on sampling. With that, are there any questions?
Questions? Thank you, Rich.
Thanks.
Item number 6, our action items. 6A is the FY 2015 Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Draft Budget and Work Program.
Good
Welcome,
morning.
Beverly.
So this is the second presentation of the draft 2015 budget, and nothing has changed since the discussion at the October board meeting, and we don't anticipate any changes between now and December that we know of. You may wish to approve the budget as it was presented last month or give us direction as to any changes and approve it subject to the changes today, or you may wish to receive another presentation of the budget at the December board meeting. If anyone would like to ask any questions or about the details, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you. I'll lead off. The budget anticipates a 2.9 COLA. Is that true?
Yes. And the documentation is in the packet,
Okay.
what that was based on.
Some of our members have done some research to indicate that perhaps 2.9 is not really where we are in this county, and unrelated to that, several of the members are doing something between little to nothing for their members. So I think we probably need to bring that up for discussion. And let me just kick it off by saying that it appears that something closer to 2% is the number that we've arrived at, that the members, various members have arrived at that have looked at El Paso County, Pikes Peak region.
We received some documentation from Manitou Springs, like you said, close to the 2% at 2.1% since the last meeting, so
And
that's correct.
Mayor Ortega, Fountain, I think, did some research. What did you come up with?
We're at, for the general staff, is 1%.
That's the increase you're passing along.
Right, to our,
I understood you did some research, though, and came up with something other
I'll
than.
let Ms.
It wasn't necessarily formalized.
Oh, okay.
Looking at, so security COLA, general COLA, casual.
Okay. Okay. For those of you that may not have heard that, their mix came up to about 1.9. Yes, Councilmember Pico.
Yeah, City of Colorado Springs is looking at 2% and 1% for senior staff. Also point out at this point that the active duty military is have 1%. So it's kind of where we're coming in here and taking a look at 2% being about what's appropriate.
Do we want to direct our budget officer to plug in the 2% number?
Yes. So moved.
That was.
Okay.
Is that the appropriate way to handle that? Is
Yes,
through a motion then?
Yes,
Okay.
and you can instruct me to go ahead and make the changes, and you approve the budget subject to those changes, and then I can have you sign the paperwork for that, and then I won't have to bring it back next month. But if you would prefer I bring it back next month, I can. It's up to you.
And do we, in that motion, want to deal with our executive director? his pay increase so that Beverly can get that plugged in accurately as well?
Great.
Yes, I think we need to include what we discussed here.
Okay.
Increase the step size.
So that,
And make that the budget approved subject to those changes.
so the decision there was to, and Rob's hearing this for the first time, so I won't be looking at him just so I don't know what his.
It's okay. I'm listening.
To raise him from his mid-step to a step 6.
Step 6. Okay, great.
Mr.
Then-
Knight, Councilmember Knight.
Point of order, we had a discussion, can't make a decision, so we still need to vote on that.
Right, that's what I was asking, is if that's included in this motion.
I think it would be safer if we do 3 separate motions, one to adjust the pay increase to 2.0, one to give Rob a step increase, and then a third to approve the budget with those two.
Okay, I had planned on doing 2 motions. If you're more comfortable with 3, I'll be happy to accommodate
I
that.
think it'd just be cleaner.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is for a 2% COLA pay increase. Any discussion on that? Call the roll. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion to increase our executive director from mid-step to step 6?
So
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, back to the budget, the item in front of us. Do we have a motion to approve with those previous adjustments?
I'll move to approve the draft budget and work program for fiscal year 2015 with those 2 changes.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Knight?
I do have a comment. It's not on the budget numbers, but it's in the budget paperwork on stakeholder process, that at the February board meeting, the board will discuss dues for 2016, and then at the October board meeting, the board approves the dues assessments. I mean, we can talk about it in February, and if we don't take any action until October, we're going to be in the same boat that we were this year. October is too late for us. We need to, if we're going to discuss it in February, we need to vote on it in March so that it can get to our accounting people. Talking about it in February, voting on it in October, my vote's going to be no on any increase because it will be too late. So we need to, I would like to see that, even though it's not one of the monetary parts of it, is the plan for next year. So I don't know if we need to formally amend it or if we can just give directions to do that. I don't know how that process works.
Give us direction, we'll do February and March.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Budget is approved.
Thank you. And the term I was looking for is the budget resolution that I'll bring to you to sign and the treasurer to sign, instead of paperwork. Sorry about that.
So,
Yeah.
so I think that the COLA adjustment nets about $27,000. Can that money be used as local match for grant funding and other things?
There's only 6% of that is not coming out of the grants.
But it was
So
still, at 2.9, wasn't it $83,000 to the budget?
that
or-
includes the increase in the insurances also.
Oh, it does, okay.
So that wasn't all salaries at all.
So back to.
So whatever
the mayor's
whatever
question.
pittance it is, can that money be used to pull down additional grant monies, or?
We'll look at it. I think the number we had in our head was about $3,300 of local dues would be freed up. But I think that was the total 2.9%. So if you
Okay.
bring that 0.9% of $3,300, it's a small amount of money.
Pittance.
It's pittance. But we will match all the grants we can. And if there's a residual, $2,700, $3,000, whatever it is, it'll go into our fund balance, call it our reserve. We have an operating reserve just in case our reimbursements from the federal, the state, the grants, everybody is for whatever reason delayed. And sometimes they are. So I would propose it, that'll just stay in the fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other budget-related questions? Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
And I neglected to note that our Transportation Commissioner, Les Gruen, has joined us. So, Les, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And glad you're here for this discussion. 6B, TIP Amendment 23. Who has that one? All right.
Good morning. I'm Ken Prather, PPACG Transportation Planner. Back in April, the board approved projects for the enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities and the new Freedom programs. The City of Colorado Springs is asking on behalf of the awardees that those projects be included in the TIP so that they can move forward with their projects. El Paso County competed in a CDOT Region 2 process and was awarded funds for sidewalks along Fontaine Boulevard. They're asking that that project be included in the TIP. CDOT is rolling over some funds and adding additional funds to 3 projects, the Rock Island Trail, the Rainbow Falls Bridge project, the Powers Boulevard Axle Decel lanes, Power Boulevard right-of-way, and most notably an additional $20 million to the I-25 Cimarron Interchange project. CDOT is also changing the resource or the allocation or the funding allocation to 4 funding categories, and they're identified in your memo. One category, the Transportation Alternatives Program, was reduced in funding, and it's proposed that some of the additional funds in the other categories be used to backfill the Transportation Alternatives Program so that no projects have to be rescoped or canceled because of that. So with the changes identified in the memo, we don't lose or impact any projects, and all of the additional funds get to move us forward and keep us going. So both the Transportation Advisory Committee and the Community Advisory Committee, as well as staff, recommend approval. Are there any questions?
Questions? Anyone in the audience? Kathleen, welcome.
Good morning, members of the board. Kathleen Krager, the Transportation Manager for the City of Colorado Springs. First, the city would like to thank CDOT for its willingness to add funds to the Cimarron Interchange. It's a crucial project, and we're fully aware of how difficult funding has become and the increase of construction costs that we're having this year. But I want to also let you know that the common question I get in regards to this increase of funding for Cimarron Interchange is, what are we losing? Because you can't just add money to one thing and print it in the basement, unless you're managing to do that, Karen, let me know. But unfortunately, the money doesn't just appear. And the city is very concerned about losing other projects that are very crucial, particularly the widening of Powers from Platte to Fountain. So I wanted to let you know that we're not ready to come to you yet, but the city is looking at using local funds to participate more in the Cimarron Interchange. And we will be going to City Council and to the PPRTA board to discuss that so that we can replace some of the RPP funds that are being used on Cimarron and hopefully free those funds up so that they could help with the funding of Powers.
Thank you.
Thank
Karen, did you have a rabbit in the hat for that widening of Powers if these funds are transferred to Cimarron?
Well, we've been working with Kathleen, and right now it's a coordination effort between Pikes Peak and the other TPRs and Pueblo MPO. Right now it's looking like we will be able to use some RPP funds for that Powers widening and some city funds in order to get the widening done next summer, or have the construction start by next summer. So we're able to get a $6.5 million project to widen Powers from Fountain to Platte and do some improvements at the airport. Let's do your report.
The city will be coming back to you probably at your December meeting or your January meeting to turn in 2 projects that have been funded and that we can fund in other methods. And by turning in those 2 projects, that frees up, let me get this straight, about $3.6 million of Metro funds. And then it would be our hope that that $3.6 million of Metro funds could be moved to the Powers project as an important project listed by the board.
Thank you.
And that's STP Metro, so I don't see the transit folks get up out of their chairs. It's not Mountain Metro.
Okay.
But the STP Metro federal funds this board allocates.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Snyder.
Well, it came up earlier, but the only thing we have on the horizon for 8th Street is potentially 228, Senate Bill 228 funds. Is that a correct statement?
8th Street is on my list of priority projects. We need to get started on Cimarron to see what work Cimarron will involve and how it will help 8th Street. But to be truthful, as soon as I get Powers funded, then I'll take that doggedness that I have when it comes to getting money and turn it right to 8th Street. And I think we are looking at, we've been talking to Craig Casper about some potentially creative design solutions at 8th Street that could cost a lot less than what the full interchange would cost there, and I hope we'll be able to get that done in the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, and what we're trying to do is make sure we have a little bit of money. So from my perspective, we have limited construction funds available for 8th Street, but we would make sure to set aside some funds for design at 8th Street so we can
just
keep
keep it-
that moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Transportation Commissioner, any comments on this one since it's definitely in your pocket?
I've got some ideas that are probably too premature to share right now, but be available to share within the next month or so that are bubbling between the executive director and the CFO and myself.
Wonderful.
So hopefully that'll translate into some surprises.
We'll assume those are good surprises. Any other discussion? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. 6C, 2040, moving forward, funding levels.
Good segue.
Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Christine Evanoff, and I'm one of the transportation planners here at PPACG. And in your packet, you have not only the memo, but this 2-page spreadsheet. This is a look at what our funding categories and our funding availability is between 2016 and 2040. Earlier this year, CDOT sent us a spreadsheet of all their estimates, and there were some blanks in that spreadsheet where we had to come up as staff here to do those estimates. And we filled in those blanks here using different statistics such as how many % of bridges are in this region, how many crashes are in this region, and that helped us do those estimates. CDOT has okayed our assumptions going into building this table, and some of the changes in the funding over the years has been due to MAP 21, obviously with lower funding in certain categories. And the way this funding is used is for the projects that we're putting into our 2040 plan. Craig will be talking about this later, about our portfolios that we're developing, and we'll be using these funding categories to help determine maintenance, operations, and what funding is available for each of those categories of those projects going forward in the regional plan. So with that, if there's any questions, myself or Craig are here to answer those.
So, Christina, you said there were some blanks. We filled those in. You filled those in. Has CDOT kind of blessed the numbers that have been plugged in there?
Yes, Wendy at one of the, I think it was the TAC meeting, had said as long as their assumptions are you can explain them well, of which we are, and to tell you the last column on page 2, I call it my chicken scratch. On the miscellaneous notes, and staff are writing a better methodology to clearly define how we did these calculations. So right now, it's just a little shorthand in that last column there on page 2, and so we're going to define that a little further of how we came up with the calculations for the estimates.
Okay. Questions, comments? Yes, Commissioner Steen.
Just an observation, the 2021 numbers take a marked drop from projections through 2017 through 2020, which ride between 2 to up to 15% growth year to year. But then in 2021, we go to a negative projection. I'm wondering what's causing the change.
That's built into CDOT's forecasting model and looking at some of the trust fund issues that exist. Basically, they assume general fund monies stop going into transportation. They only put the general fund monies continuing to backfill the hole in transportation after 2020.
So we'd expect then the numbers 2021 through 2025 to be revised at this point, or what?
They'll be likely revised for our next plan.
Okay.
So these are the numbers that we have to work with through this plan. But the good news is we get to do this every 4 years. So before we get to those years, we'll be doing this again.
It was pretty startling because the numbers go basically flat.
Yeah, and that reflects actual intake for the trust fund through the gas tax.
Okay. All right. Anything we need to be doing differently about planning in terms of 6 years and out and beyond?
Well, we did our estimate, and just some of the things we're on the web now. We're doing a survey, but in order to meet our maintenance goals through 2040, we need to take 85% of our total funds. So if you look at the bottom right number there, $6.3 billion, we need 85% of that to maintain the system we have now to meet our goal. To meet our congestion goal, we need to take 75% of the money. So right there, we're 170% of our money to meet our goals. So the only thing, the help we need from you is helping us figure out what the trade-offs are.
I think as you said, the roads are never better than they are now.
Yeah, the roads as they exist today are as good as they're going to be until 2040. And tomorrow they'll be as good. I mean, it's just the way the funds are laid out. So
thanks for clarifying.
Yep.
Other questions, comments? Do we have a motion to approve?
You got.
Councilmember Knight.
On the paperwork on page 3 of it, the very last paragraph said, in addition to the changes noted above, the TAC requested more detail describing the funding estimates. So while they approved it, it looked like they wanted a report out, and now we're being asked to approve it before that report comes out. Are we putting, when is that additional detail coming out, and should we be waiting to vote until we get all the additional detail that the TAC wanted?
So to clarify, that last paragraph is the last column on page 2 of the spreadsheet. Like I said, it's kind of shorthand notes of the calculations that were put into of how we calculated. Some of it says it's from original CDOT table. We did no further calculations. And so this document that I'll be authoring will detail this a little bit more. The numbers won't change because of that methodology. It's just outlining what percentages we use to calculate and just to clarify a little bit more what my notes are and just a little bit of writing. Craig, when do we present that to the board as a?
Well, that will be part of the financial plan that is developed, which should be coming in the next couple of months. It's another one of our sub-plans that is required. But we need the numbers. If you don't approve these numbers today, we need at least approval to start building our portfolios so we can figure out what our what projects to start looking at. So. While you don't have to approve the final approval of the dollars, we do need at least approval to start using it to develop our portfolios. But like Christine said, the numbers aren't going to change. CDOT has seen the numbers.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Since this is a TAC question, we were fine with the numbers as presented. We just wanted to make sure that as we went along, that some of those notes were kind of cryptic, and so that's what we were asking her to kind of make sure that as the financial plan was finalized and everything, that, as we go back and look at this, we can make sure that everybody remembers how that was developed. So that from the TAC perspective, that was the discussion.
Okay. And I have two more questions.
Please.
Next one, as Commissioner Steen pointed out, the numbers in the individual years that we have through 2025 grow anywhere from 2 to 15%. And, you read the preamble, and we see that since the mid-2000s, there's been a notable change in the overall forecast with the decline in total funds. And then the second paragraph is inflation is, of course, kicking us in the rear on our buying power. But with a decline in funds, how are we getting 15% increases? It just, scratch my head. The two didn't jive.
In I guess, which specifically?
Well, in the background, the paper that was provided to us, the 3 pages on page 2, second paragraph under background. Since the mid-2000s, funds has been going down.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing 2010, it's gone down forecast. In 2014 is at 28% less than previous levels. So then I go down to the table and I would expect to either see some decline or a flat line. And instead, I'm seeing a jump from 2017 to 2018 from 180 million up to 195 million. So.
And that is because the CDOT had done their STIP out to 2017. When they did that, they were using the previous federal legislation, not MAP 21. 2018 starts the implementation of the MAP 21 requirements and how the new distribution of funds is. So CDOT's total pot has gone down, but how they're just splitting that pot up changes according to MAP 21 requirements. And in some cases, we come out a little on the positive side of that.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Anything
If
else?
you say so, yeah. One last question was your last comment then. In the background paper, the very lead off is that, we have to have a financially constrained plan.
Right.
You said our plan is already 170% overspent. So when do we correct it?
Well, no, we will correct it. We will only put in projects that are fiscally constrained. It's just it's the trade-offs. Do we not do maintenance? Do we and accept congestion? It's those identifying those trade-offs. We're only going to spend 100% of the funds.
Yeah.
The goals will not be met, and it's how badly, we're trying to make the future slightly less
So
bad.
when does that come to us is my question.
Oh, that project list should come probably, right now we're aiming for January, maybe as a draft list. The TAC will be having a special workshop on that portfolios December 17th, I think, is when they'll start. Because we've got the project scores and lists now, and now it's trying to figure out, okay, with our limited amount of money, what is the projects that are best for the whole region? And sometimes the projects that are best for an individual entity aren't the ones that also are then best for the whole region. So.
Okay, so those 13 goals we approved earlier in the year, we're not going to meet them all.
We're not going to meet any of them.
And we probably knew we weren't going to meet them, which is why I was voting no on those, all those previous times, because I thought 13 was too many.
Yep.
We went in financially unconstrained, and I don't know if I'll be here when we do the 2045, but.
Well, 20. We'll be starting that in probably May.
Well,
So-
then I think our appetite at the very beginning needs to be financially constrained instead of setting these goals. So.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner. Councilmember Gabler.
In the transit category, the very last line is strategic projects. I just have two questions about that. First, is there a project list for those strategic projects? And the second question is, why are there no dollars after 2020?
After 2020 for the strategic, a second, let me catch up to where you are. So it's on page 1 of the first attachment?
Yes.
Strategic projects. Well, the strategic projects, all of the strategic project funding we have are in 2026 through 2040, the $1 billion. Am I looking in the wrong place? Oh, under transit. Oh, there it is. Well, those, the strategic project, that's 228 money that we were talking about earlier, And there's a requirement in the 228 funds that 10% of that be taken off the top for transit. Those projects, in order to figure out funds, we just use a percentage of the state and said we're about that much. Right now, the forecast is only for 5 years' worth of funds. And so we just dropped it in
So
as a
those are just
percentage.
dollars, there's no projects?
There's no projects against that. On the flip side of that, Transit we do have a very long list of projects, including fixed guideway, like a trolley type or bus rapid transit type projects. We have those projects, and they were evaluated as part of our project list, and so those are included also. So they're just not scoring very high right now, and they're pretty expensive. So.
Yeah, just to add to that, so just to remind the board, you had 260 projects in your full list of projects, whether they're transit, bikeway, roadway, bridges. So now we're getting to the point of, with 260 projects, we'll take through the committees and eventually up to the board, how many of those 260, any kind of project, will you be able to fund with these dollars? And so the dollar value of the 260 projects is in billions. We don't have billions, so that's what we talk about with the portfolios. We'll give you ideas of how many projects, and my guess is 20 projects or less of those 260 you're going to be able to fund with the money you see here, and then match them up to the goals and all the weighting that you've already approved with the committees over the last year. We're eventually going to say we can fund these next 12 projects, 20 projects, depending on what you think the priority is. And so the portfolios will help you get to the list of projects. And it's, I guess, forewarning now, there's not a lot going to be on the fiscally constrained list. So of the 260, you're going to have 230 or more that will not be funded in this 26-year plan.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, Karen.
I did mention 2 highway projects that were going to go to the Transportation Commission on the $2 billion Senate Bill 228 potential list. But there's also some transit projects, and mainly the transit projects for the Senate Bill 228. So they do say on Senate Bill 228, 10% has to be set aside for transit projects. So we're setting aside, my guess is around $200 million for transit projects. I haven't looked at the subtotal. But there are ones identified in this area for transit. They mainly support the improvement of bus staying. So like improving Nevada-Tejon Park and Ride, improving Woodman Park and Ride, improving things along those lines that support maybe at Monument also, some on-ramp improvements, things along those lines. So there will be a draft list going to the Transportation Commission in November. They'll comment on it, and then we'll have the final 228 list in December is the schedule right now for them to say, yes, that's what we want to move forward with. But there are some transit projects on there, too.
Thank you. Other comments? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
6D, stack representative selection process for 2015. Rob, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I'll lead off and encourage the board to weigh in as we go. Voters of Colorado have taken our stack rep. Wayne Williams is going to the state level. So Wayne suggested, and I agreed, that we should have the board talk about stack representation. Normally in January, you say, here are stack reps for the upcoming year. With the departure of Wayne in January, and also one of your other stack reps, Lisa Slotko. She just emailed me a couple days ago saying she is not interested, because of other commitments, to be your representative on the statewide Transportation Advisory Committee. Sorry about the acronym. But for that committee, you've got a list of representatives in your packet. Usually Craig and I are the last ones there. We usually attend, but we do prefer, and I think the board agrees, to have some of you as elected officials weighing in on the state level at the statewide Transportation Advisory Committee. So board choice of if you would like to fill your 2 upcoming vacancies today or wait till January, it's pleasure of the board.
Mayor Snyder.
Well, I've been very impressed with the way Commissioner Steen has embraced this opportunity and this responsibility, and I'm wondering if you would be amenable to being our first stack representative. Okay. And I think it would be helpful if we had another elected official who was in the pipeline, so to speak, getting up to speed and being an alternate there. So I'm wondering if...
Do we have a volunteer? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, I'm just, I guess I'm putting a line in the water to see if anybody bites, but there is some merit to having elected officials as a representative in the first alternate.
Councilmember Knight.
And put my hand down. Sure wasn't. Just careful there. I was going to ask the same question, so if Norm is willing to move up, I think we keep that, and I don't know if it'd be appropriate to add this to the nominating committee to look for both a civilian and a elected first alternate and a civilian second alternate.
I don't believe we've had civilians in the past, have we, or have they always been board members?
Or former board members.
Okay.
Lisa Slotko was Citizen Slotko.
Other than. Former.
Right.
Other than.
Typically, it's been, just a history, and it's in the memo. The stack is usually county commissioners from around the state, and sometimes the staff fills in, but usually they're elected officials.
Okay. Councilmember Pico.
Oh, I was just going to
Oh.
basically mention that, yeah, the only reason she was
Right.
a citizen was because she was in that position and retained it.
Okay. I would, if somebody would like to volunteer for that alternate position, I'd be happy to take that name now.
Well, let me ask a dumb question.
Yes.
What is the time of schedule that
Commissioner Steen?
Yeah, meeting, they meet from 9 until noon on generally previously was the second Friday in Denver at CDOT headquarters. That meeting has now moved to the fourth Friday of each month, beginning in January. Other than attendance at meetings, there's some preparation. Of course, I personally have spent a lot of time with Craig and during work sessions to understand issues facing the region. There's a lot of background work, perhaps, and if you have some background in budgets and in transportation planning, it's helpful, but certainly not necessary. I have a background in other areas, but moving into state Colorado budgeting has been a little bit of a learning curve, but staff here has been very, very helpful, and I would encourage you to jump in. It's a very educational process, and it's obviously very, very important to the region. So.
Mayor Snyder.
Did I hear Rob say, maybe Norm, you could confirm this, but it's generally county commissioners that make up the stack?
That's true. County commissioners and MPO, TMA, TPR representatives, not in every case, but by and large, they are elected officials, primarily county commissioners.
I can comment on why so many of them are county commissioners, is because you take better care of us than we do of you as city council members. So quite often, this is a full-time job for us, so we have the availability to attend a meeting in Denver on a Friday. So.
Was that a volunteer offer?
No. But I was just explaining, it's really not a county commissioner, limited to, it just practically, that seems to be how it shakes out, so it's certainly open to anyone. They would encourage, they'd be thrilled to have a school teacher up there, So, that being said, perhaps we go with Councilmember Knight's suggestion that we move Norm up and then let our nominating committee broaden the search to look for someone. So, did we have a motion on the table? Okay.
Second.
So,
further discussion?
To clarify, so the motion is to make Norm our representative, Rob second alternate, Craig third alternate, and then we'll be looking for a first alternate. Am I missing that?
Yeah, I think what it is right now is third and fourth alternate are Rob and Craig, and you have two vacancies, correct?
In the past, I don't know that we've had two alternates. That was kind of another compromise to, because of Ms. Salatko's status.
So it's not that you have 5?
Right.
Most TMAs, MPOs have one plus an alternate. So we're generous in our attendance. And it's been very helpful, so.
Everybody understand the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, I think.
6E, appointed nominating committee. Rob?
Look at that. Good segue. Nominating committee just got busier. Today's action requested, in keeping with your process to elect officers for next year, today you just need to name a nominating committee. They will then meet between now and your December meeting to come up with either candidates for each officer position, a slate of officers, or something in between. Eventually, in January, this board will vote at your annual meeting to name your officers for 2015. So,
And if you have not yet put in your name to volunteer for an officer, that is still available to you. So feel free, if you just didn't ever quite hit the send button on your return email to Rob. That being said, currently we've had 3 people volunteer to be on the nominating committee. It runs heavy to El Paso County with Commissioner Glenn, Commissioner Clark, and Clerk and Recorder Wayne Williams. If anyone else would like to be part of the nominating committee, if we could hear that at this time. Okay?
Well, I don't think Wayne can fill that role, can he, anymore?
Sure.
through January.
Okay. So we have Jill Gabler. Anyone else? Sharon Thompson? Anyone else? Yes, Mark. This is going to be fun. Others that would like to serve on the nominating committee?
Is that an even or an odd number now?
Oh, who cares? It'll make it fun to watch. I have served on that committee, and it's never really quite come down to a knockdown, drag-out tie, so generally a consensus thing. So that being said, our nominating committee will be Darrell Glenn, Sally Clark, Wayne Williams, Jill Gabler, Sharon Thompson, and Mark Detweiler. And Rob will coordinate with you all.
You expect an email soon.
Okay. Item 6F, PPACG Foundation Proposal.
That's mine, too.
Good.
In your package, you have a lot of background on this, which is not a lot. Over the years, our Area Agency on Aging program has been asked to accept donations of various sorts, probably in the range of tens of thousands of dollars. While PPACG is certainly able to collect those donations for our programs, we cannot give them a tax receipt because we are not a 501c3, the right kind of agency. We are quasi-governmental, quasi-public agency. We are proposing to use the Pikes Peak Foundation, Pikes Peak Community Foundation, to be our administrator of an arm, I'll call it, to be a PPACG foundation, which can receive this money through them, can collect the money, and then return it to PPACG through this board for allocation to the program it was intended, and that's usually in our Area Agency on Aging. I think some of the folks are so happy with our case management or ombudsman or some of those services, they say, here's money. And so while we see it probably coming in the package, we're guessing it's maybe a $35,000 a year inbound dollar amount for specific purposes that you will see in part of your budget process. We'd like to submit this proposal so that folks can get their tax receipt. We can get all the auditing numbers done at an affordable rate because the Pikes Peak Community Foundation, they charge 5% of the dollars, and then 95% of those donations come back, as I said, to this board for allocation. So it's a way to solve a few of the technicalities of folks that want to donate to our programs, and we ask for your approval to submit to the Pikes Peak Community Foundation and go from there.
So no risk to us.
Not that we see.
Questions, comments? Yes, Councilmember Knight.
I like the concept by going with this organization and the 5% price tag. I'm surprised we don't have alliances with a bunch of other 501Cs that we could do a non-monetary quid pro quo to do the handling of the money for us versus having to go and give up 5% off the top.
Yeah, good point. In talking with some of our partners, it's interesting because a lot of the nonprofits we work with, this board gives them money. And so we think there may be an inherent conflict of interest if we're giving them money, the federal, state money, and then mixing and matching with some of their donation dollars. It's probably something that could work out, but our proposal, we're hoping, is a lot cleaner, that we don't compete, mix money, or have to commingle board allocations of money and ask a nonprofit that's a funding agency of us to do additional work for us, and how do we do audits, and so it seemed more complicated. I'm not saying it can't be done, but we thought the 5% wasn't a lot to ask to get the free and clear money for this board to allocate to those programs, because some of the programs may actually give the money back to those same nonprofits.
What about, I know you didn't think it was fair, but like the nonprofits that give us money, Homeland Defense is just one that comes, we get a grant from them. You said it wasn't fair to ask them to do much work, but how much work are we asking them to do? I mean, this is a pass-through.
Yeah.
The 5% is just the thing that really bothers me.
Yeah, it could be significant, but in our looking, we'd have to have an independent audit of these funds. And so do an independent audit. Would it be separate of the other nonprofit? Or we haven't got that far in the discussions with them. Under this, the Pikes Peak Community Foundation would take care of all auditing and writing and doing all those administrative tasks. We're not sure what it would involve with a different nonprofit. We do not get money from National Homeland Defense Foundation right now. We actually gave them money through a grant. Yeah, it's actually the reverse.
Oh, okay.
But they do their own audit. We don't do their audit. But we do auditing of the private grant that we got and then gave to them.
Well, from what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, this is something that we should be doing, but it's not time critical. Sounds like you did a search of one organization, found that to be working. Maybe we can delay this and do a little bit more research to see if there's somebody out there that could do it for us. I mean, as we learned on stormwater, that was only 1.5% from the clerk and recorder if we had gone that way. So I would like to see more options other than one solution at 5%.
I agree.
I like the idea.
This is not time critical, so we certainly could delay that and direct staff to look at other options.
Okay.
I don't believe you've got $1 million check waiting there to cash.
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. So we'll continue this for a month?
We can report back in a month.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Bringing us to item number 7. No, I guess we should probably have discussion and vote on that first, shouldn't we? Any discussion on the 1-month delay? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7. 7A is an MPO planning area boundary. I think what you're saying there is with changes. And, okay.
Tiny.
Don Hanson, a geology planner here at PPACG. Every 10 years, the census takes a head count, of course, and allots these to geographic areas of blocks, block groups, and census tracts. So we're kind of about mid-year of their census. And attachment 1A, this figure here, shows the increase based upon the urbanized area that was calculated based upon the census tracts and block groups. That had changed back in 2000. They used to use a block group as a core with a particular population density and worked out from that core and with adjoining block groups. And once those met their criteria, then they're moved on into blocks, in which the defining boundary is ultimately established. So our figure 1A shows the additional urbanized areas developed from these census tracts and blocks, and the extensions from our MPO from 2000. We have about like 8, maybe a little bit more extensions. One notable is in the Fountain area, and one north of our MPO, which is in Douglas County, is handled by Dr. Cog, if I understood correctly. We did a calculation based upon our forecasted TAZs along with their populations. And TAZ is somewhat of a census boundary. We modify them to suit our needs. And Emily had done some forecasting, so we had taken the 24 TAZ household populations, and where there was a population density of 1,000 per square mile, and used that as a defining boundary, and a little bit of interpretation in some areas, as you might be able to see in attachment 2A, to see what 2040 will look like. Along with this has an inset that shows your current urbanized area versus that of the projected 2040 TAZ population density. And you can tell it somewhat follows along the path, except for a little bit out east and a little bit about mid-north. The other attachment, 1A, have a comparison of 2000 versus the 2010 urbanized areas. The census had changed, and probably the FHWA had changed calculations in which these adjacent polygons, blocks, block groups, et cetera, are adjoined and to form a defining boundary.
So basically what you're telling us is somebody else decides this, and these areas meet the criteria, and they're now part of us.
They're not part of us.
But they're about to be? I mean, isn't that why this is in front of us?
Yes.
Okay. But we don't vote on it. This is an information item.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Just so you'll see how
So
we're growing
when-
ever so slightly, the different approaches we had taken to look at.
When do they become part of us?
I guess after the governor signs it, correct, Rob?
We have some flexibility in establishing our MPO boundary, and so we'll be taking this to the CAC and TAC to get their input onto what modifications to make to the boundary. The smallest area we can do is the area in purple, so we could shrink it down to about half the size it is now. Or the largest area is the metropolitan statistical area, all of El Paso and Teller County. I foresee something very similar to what we have now coming out of the advisory committee meetings with the addition of the small areas. Based on some conversations with some of the other Fountain and El Paso County, there's some desire to include the Charter Oak Ranch Road, Gate 19 area also into the MPO, so that...
Since we have a voting member here, actually she's an alternate, it would be good to get her in part of the...
Okay. No, it was out of the urban area, but now into the planning area. We have 5 different regional boundaries that we work with.
If you had a bigger family, maybe you'd be part of the urban area. I don't know.
Yeah, so we can plan for more than what's going to become urban,
Right.
and that's what we've in the past have done. So we'll be working with the advisory committees to look at incorporating maybe down to like Wilderness Road in Fort Carson and make a nice, because we're supposed to have a good methodology and create smooth boundaries. So, but we'll be doing that in the next month or two depending on, and you'll be seeing an update on that, so.
And speaking to the Charter Oak Ranch Road, even Fountain City limits or something, may be a nice boundary, I don't know. But
Well, that's, different federal agencies use different boundaries, and so that another possibility is I forget it, like the Department of Commerce has a way of determining metro area boundaries, and so we could incorporate that too. Those are things we'll discuss, so.
Victoria?
Victoria Chavez, El Paso County. El Paso County is actually requesting that change on Charter Oak Ranch Road due to the Tiger grant that we received. It'll make things a little bit easier to have that in the urbanized area. In discussions with the Federal Highways, they actually awarded us an urban area grant and not the rural area grant.
Oh.
So it will help us out a great deal to have that area included in the metropolitan planning area.
Well,
so we're looking to make that change and requesting it.
Let's not let this languish then if we've got money sitting riding on changing the designation.
It is not sitting riding on that,
Okay.
but it will help us when we get to looking to do those construction projects.
Okay.
The grant that we have right now is for planning for those improvements. It'll help us a lot once we start looking for funds to do the actual construction. So
Okay.
we'll look for your support in upcoming months on that.
Thank you.
Thank
Further
you.
comments? Mayor Snyder.
So the little addition on the west end of Manitou, is that Rainbow Falls?
I honestly would have to zoom in.
It
Yeah,
looks like
it's in that general area, yes. So.
Okay.
It did not wash away.
Thank you.
Got the homeless thing?
Yeah, that population is enough
It could be
to.
an urban center there.
Item B is our moving forward.
As discussed at the funding, during the funding item, we are in the process of developing portfolios of investments through our long-range plan. And in the past, we've used the weighted sum model. You take a score, apply a weight that goal, and get a weighted score for it. It's a fairly simple process, but has some noted deficiencies. So we took a look with the TAC and the CAC at some different methodologies that use the same scores and same weights, just in different statistical algorithms to develop lists of projects to see, or ranks of projects to see what that does. Took those, had a discussion, had a workshop, and then a discussion at the TAC. This outcome of that is, at least for this plan, maintain use of the weighted sum model because we have such small amount of funds, and we didn't start the process looking at these other algorithms, models, so that while they're good, they answered some questions, they definitely informed some of our discussions. We're going to continue to use the weighted sum model and some variations off of that. I guess that's the long and short of the item.
And what you're telling us is you've kind of got this figured out, and you believe it's going to be compliant with federal regulations.
Yeah, all of them, all three of those would meet the regulations. It's just the deficiencies of the weighted sum model. Instead of using some fairly obtuse mathematical formulas to account for it, we'll just account for it in our discussions. It's just, especially when you're talking about the limited number of projects we're going to have, it was just a better way to do it. But it was very informative.
Questions for Craig? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 7C, 2040, moving forward, Chapter 13. Emily?
Emily's on the way.
Hi, good almost afternoon. So this is, I guess, a continuation. You guys have been seeing a couple chapters here and there throughout the last year as we've been developing the draft regional plan, and this is just another one of those chapters you can review before we get to that public release. So it's kind of the pre-comment period.
And I note you did not print it out.
Yes, there's a hyperlink, and we're hoping to save some trees here. Just a couple. They're pretty long chapters. But if anybody does need it printed, certainly let us know. We can get you a copy of it.
Okay.
So email me comments on that specific chapter whenever you get a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. 7D, stack agenda.
Stack
Norm?
agenda, it's on the table for the board members. We just got it.
Anything there, Norm, that we need
Just
to
one item that's come up a couple times this morning already is we'll be discussing Senate Bill 228. This is a Senate Bill, it's actually 09228 that provides some funding to the general fund for transportation, 10% of which would go to transit. We've been talking as if it's a foregone conclusion that those funds be available, but of course they are not. There are two other factors in play. One is the Tabor limitations, which may, rather than allocate to the general fund, actually redistribute back to taxpayers.
I hope everybody enjoys their grande latte.
Right, it's going to be $8 or something back in taxes if that's actually come true. But even that's not foregone because, of course, the legislature still has a say in how 2015 funds are allocated. So I'm expecting a pretty lively discussion, question and answer period from our DTD director on Friday. So that's probably the most notable thing on the agenda for Friday's stack meeting. Also, just one of the outcomes from our work session offsite CDOT planning meeting was TPR MPO updates. So if there are items that you'd like me now to present to the stack, there is items on the agenda to present items from the MPO back to the state format for discussion. So we've already done that one time last month, and I found it very, very helpful to see what other MPOs around the state are doing. So if you'd like me to carry some water forward, please let me know.
Thank you.
I like the update this month. You have hardware for an update.
Yes. And by the way, I did talk with CDOT staff last week and I told them that this was coming, and I would hopefully expect that we would have time on the agenda Friday to present that in a statewide format to receive that on behalf of the MPO.
Good. We appreciate that. Item 8, member entity announcements. So, Rob, do you want to take the governors? Do we want Karen to do that?
Oh, I think there are two people at the event over there along with me.
Okay.
But I think for CDOT, that's probably appropriate. Their event to congratulate everyone involved for I-25 completion.
Well, I got to be at the fun part of this project, which is right at the end. So I know there was a lot of work up front with getting all that money together and pulling it, to make it a project. So I want to say thanks to the Pikes Peak Board of Directors for making that happen and getting all the funding. I think everyone is just so excited that that project is done, and it looks really good out there now. So it was really a nice event with the governor coming, Don Hunt, Mayor Pro Tem of Monument, and Les Gruen. They all spoke at the event, and it was nice to really celebrate the opening of that highway. I wish we could do more. It was up above the highway because we can't actually do the ribbon cutting on it. But there's still a few little items, I think, being finished up out there with lighting and some signs and things like that. But otherwise, we have a pretty nice highway that everyone's pretty excited about. So, thank
Great.
you.
Does that mean the fines double signs are down now, or?
I think they're down. I think the speed limit's up. Yeah, I know we had a press release on the speed limit going back up to 75. When they do work, they should put up the fines doubled if they have to shut down a lane in order to do shoulder work. But as far as I know, the signs are down.
Great. Thank you.
Other comments? Commissioner Steen.
Real quick, as many of you know, Bennett Avenue downtown Cripple Creek was under construction for a big part. We had a CDOT grant, I think it was $2.3 million. 1 week from today, we'll do a ribbon cutting. I think we're doing a real ribbon cutting, letting the donkeys loose down Cripple Creek again. 1 week from today, 3 p.m., downtown Cripple Creek. So you're all welcome to come, 3 p.m.
Thanks. Mayor Pro Tem Snyder.
Stevens?
One of them?
Hey, you at the end. Works just fine. We are celebrating the opening of our new town hall on Saturday at noon to about 3. This coming Saturday, and you're all, of course, cordially invited to come, and hope you can help us celebrate. So we're excited to see that happen after a quick construction and multiple years of planning and recovering from our arson fire.
Marvelous. Councilmember Knight.
I'd like to regress to the opening ceremony. We also had a mayor from a small town just south called Colorado Springs, right? And
I think I forgot a person. Sorry.
it was a great event, and I appreciate you guys putting it on, and the heroics of fighting the wind to keep the flags and the poster upright. But it was a fun time. On the negative side, though, I do have a little concern about the messaging that went out on that, because this was originally scheduled at the new Colorado Army Guard Readiness Center at the northwest corner of Briargate and Voyager. And I had the privilege of going to that opening, and the Army One-Star, who's a deputy tag and head of the Colorado Army National Guard, very pleased that they moved out into the city. They're off of Fort Carson. They're into the city. They're looking for this to be something that the citizens can use also. They have a whole floor. And then there was some concern, since it's on Air Force Academy property, what can be used or not. And so when the email went out that it got moved up to the theaters because we couldn't do it on Academy property, the Air Force said we couldn't do it. I called the Academy and found out, I said, "Que pasa? I mean, we can do events on the golf course, we can do events at the stadium." And they came back and said they were not the ones that had made that move. And they gave me a name. I'll give that to you offline. But so I just want to get that point out there and set the record straight that the Guard is very concerned, or wanting very much to make this the people's house and not just the Guard's house.
Now, Don, I was at that same event, and I heard the same thing, that we possibly have some problems with community events. And so you're saying they've resolved that?
I don't know, but when what you and I heard,
yeah.
And so when I saw we had to move it up to the theaters, I called up to the General Johnson's chief of staff and Ms. Colvin and asked her, "Que pasa?" She did research for me and came back and said it was not the Academy. She has a name. I don't want to put that name in public. Sure. But, they did not say they could not use that.
Okay.
So.
And I saw the emails flying around that talked about it and had them figure it out. I do know there was something about it being so close to an election and using federal property for purposes, like, not purposes, but with the event of the governor and the governor's election coming up, and it was within a certain time frame of that. So I don't think it's a perpetual issue. I think it had to do with the election and using federal property for an event like that, with the governor being up for election. So I think there was something along those lines that was partially the issue. No, it's okay. It just I don't necessarily think it was the Air Force saying no, you can't. It was, this is the concern with using federal property.
Somebody thought
rules.
discretion should be exercised.
Yeah, along those
timing.
lines. I mean, we found another place, and it wasn't that big of an issue. And I think in future that facility could be used for other events and other things.
Having spent about 25 years in the National Guard myself, and at some funding levels, that is a national initiative to build a closer coordination between the National Guard, specifically reserve centers, and communities. Doing some things, joint ventures like emergency, fire district centers and community centers with National Guard facilities. So joint use is really the trend where the reserve components are going. So play that card if you need to.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any other member entity announcements? With that, meeting schedule is in front of you. Executive session has already been disposed of. Should lead to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Less than 2.5 hours.
Close. It was
Toss
close.
up. See how the afternoon goes.
Yeah. So you heard,
For the rest of the day, it looks like the white stuff's blowing around.
We'll have a,
This is,
like we did last year.
I'm the fortunate soul because I just live not too far from here. I just sneak out to peek a little bit.
Remember last
Yes.
year,
Stephen, it's always good to see Steve Slade.
we got together.
We don't get to see enough of each other, but
It was cool that he was able to go to the parade.
yeah, he's
The executive.
our hearts are definitely in the same place. Just wanting
I mean,
to
I think they were all
part
invited.
of our respective teams. And